One of the things I do in my job is type a lot, and so you use a word processor, and one of the things I almost never think about with that is that the word processor always sets up the paper to have margins around it, like 1.25 inches on every side. And if you think about it, almost all paper, all writing that you get has these margins around the edge, and there's a reason for that. It is a lot easier to read when there are margins on the edge of the paper. It's something about the way the eye tracks or the brain or something. It's a lot more readable when you have those margins there. That's why they're there. If you ever write all the way out to the edge of all the paper, it becomes difficult to read and kind of hard to process. That idea of having margin making things easier and better doesn't just show up with paper, it shows up with a lot of things. I remember learning how to water ski when I was in high school. And I got up there on the skis for the first time, and I fell over, and I forgot to let go of the rope, and so I fell over and was dragged through the water for a while, which is the kind of mistake you only make once water skiing. After that, you go, you know what, if I fall over, I should really let go of this thing. But one of the tips they gave me about water skiing was, Chris, you have to bend your arms and bend your knees. If your arms are out straight and your knees are straight, if you hit like an unexpected bump or the boat changes speed suddenly, you have nowhere to go. If it pulls on your arms and your arms aren't bent, you're going to fall over. So you have to have a little bit of bend in your knees and your arms in order to flow and sort of to function well on skis. And it's that what is true of paper, what is true of water skiing, what is true of all these things in our lives is also true of just the way we live our lives in the day-to-day. The way we manage our fear, our anxiety, the way we manage our stress levels. And all of that stuff is pretty relevant right now, from COVID to all the stuff kind of happening in culture and an upcoming election and the economy and all these things swirling around us. There's a lot of anxious people right now. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of nervousness. And one of the things I have found most effective in dealing with all of that in my own life, and I've seen effective in the lives of others, is to build margin into your life. We used to have margin more than we have it today, and it's not that we're just busier. I think it's actually because we are filling up the natural margin spaces, the natural gaps in our day, with too much noise and activity. And so we're missing out on just sort of the natural pauses of the day. So for example, think of all the times in your day when you would have margin, when you would have time just to sit and think. You go, oh, I don't have time to sit and think. I'm too busy for that. Well, you take a shower. You brush your teeth. I walk to work, and so I can think on my walk, but maybe you drive to work. You've got that drive time. You have a time when you cut the grass. There's times in your day and your week that are downtime. Maybe you're standing in line waiting to get some food or to get coffee or something like that. These are moments in the day. Going to the gym is another one. These are moments in your day where you don't have to have constant input, but you could actually like catch your breath and maybe think and process. And what happens is, because of the availability of phones and podcasts, and I love podcasts, so I've been guilty of this too, we fill up all of those things, all of those moments with more information, with more noise, with more input. And when we are constantly experiencing the input and the noise, we just don't make the time to stop and think. And I actually think some of the disconnect we're seeing in culture, where people can't communicate or people are at each other, part of that just comes from we're regurgitating the noise that we've heard, and we're not building in the space or the margin to sit and think and process. I think this is why whenever I get out of town, I come back energized. If I can go somewhere to another church, to visit a friend, to maybe vacation, something like that, I come back energized because I get out of that rat race of life and I have a little bit of margin. And during that margin, I start thinking again. I start maybe praying more. I start reading more. I start listening to God more. And I come back more energized about what is going on. And I've had some new thoughts and been able to process. That stuff doesn't happen unless you have some margin. So my cure for the anxiety or the stress or the tension that we're feeling right now is to build more margin into my life. And I'm not saying you need to go like take a yoga class or something like that. That may be helpful. But I would actually say that maybe our first move is to just reclaim the spaces that are already there in our schedule and take back the quiet that is built in. to go for a run without listening to that podcast, to take the shower without listening to some music or something like that, to have a quiet drive on your way to work so you can think, things like that. If we can build those pieces of rest, of break, of margin into the day, I think it's a game changer for us, because then we won't hit the end of the day. What happens at the end of the day? You used up all those natural breaks and you filled them with input, and we get there at the end of the day and we all say some version of, oh, I just want to unplug. Well, you want to unplug because you didn't unplug at all during the day. So you go, oh, I'm going to unplug, which means I'm going to watch Netflix, I'm going to scroll my Instagram feed, something like that. But maybe we wouldn't go to those places if we actually took advantage of the breaks that are in our day. One thing that's been really helpful for me is that I start every day not on a screen. And I've tried to keep this up as a consistent discipline in my life, and I've been better at it in the last couple months, I think, maybe than I have been in years past. But I start my day with a journal on paper where I write in it. For me, it matters what kind of pen I use. I can't write with a Chromie pen. I have to have a good pen to write with. So I write with a pen, and I'll write down things I'm thankful for and things I'm praying about. And then I will do a couple things. We're doing a Bible study in church around Genesis, God of the covenant. So that's got a daily homework with it. So I'll do my Genesis reading, do my homework with that. We've been reading Core 52 as a church. So I will do my daily Core 52 reading or memorization, and I'll go through that. And then I'll write down things to pray for, and I will pray. And then sometimes I will meditate. And by that I mean sort of the breathing, relaxation sort of meditation. I use an app for that. There's several good ones out there. And then I will usually read a chapter of a book, something that is a more long form. It's not a blog post. It's not a BuzzFeed article. It's a longer thing of like, here's a book that I'm trying to strategically work through. And that's how I start my day. And the trick with that is, I think Justin Earley, who wrote the book The Common Rule, talks about a strategy for us in the craziness of the world is scripture before phone. So go to the book, go to the reading, go to the prayer, go to the meditation, go to those things before you ever touch your phone in the morning. And that can be a big help to start your day that way. That has helped me keep some margin in my life and keep my head sane while it seems like a lot of people are losing their minds. I don't know if that will work for you. I've seen it work for me. I've seen it work for others. You may find a routine that works a little bit better. But I do know you're not going to get a routine like that on accident. You're going to have to decide, this is what I want to go for, and this is worth marking out. I even track it with little check marks of how many days in a row do I read a chapter, how many days do I meditate, or how many days do I read the covenant homework that I'm doing, or whatever. So I would encourage you to kind of look at that. I think it was Blaise Pascal. I have to go double check this now, but I think it was Blaise Pascal who said that all of man's troubles stem from the fact that he's unable to sit in a room quietly alone. That's roughly the quote. And I think there's something to that. We have a lot of problems that come when we're unable to get quiet and just think and process. And so let's reclaim that. Let's get that margin back in our lives, because I really think that's going to help us to grow and to keep our sanity as we go into the back half of this year. So that's what I got for you today. Hopefully that is helpful to you. Take care.